It's Friday, 5:30 in the p.m., and this is your host, Congressman Danny Davis, for the next 25 minutes of Hotline 21. I am always ecstatic when I get a chance to interact and interface with you, our viewing audience. Let me just make an announcement or two. One, the Westside Black elected officials invite everybody to a gigantic conference on education tomorrow. It's called the State of Education on the West Side, organized by the Westside Black elected officials and community stakeholders. It's going to be at Malcolm X College. Registration begins at 8 o'clock. The conference will be from 9 to 4. There will be a continental breakfast as well as lunch. So come on and let's talk about education. There are a lot of things that different people. You know, Malcolm X said a lot about education. Malcolm X said that education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare today. Let me tell you, I had a wonderful morning at the Basel Charter School, St. Basil, with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Let me tell you, we just had ourselves a ball. So I give a shout out to the principal, all of the teachers who were there, and one young fellow who is now a teacher. I used to teach his father when I was a school teacher. And so, Omari, I give a shout out to you. We kind of watched you grow through college, through high school. Now you are a teacher, and I think you did an outstanding job today in preparing the students, and so I just had a good time. Tomorrow, it's education. Come on out to Malcolm X, and let's talk about it. How do we convince our children to really stick their noses into those school books and reading, writing, and arithmetic? You know, we used to listen to a song, School Day, Dear Old Golden Rule Day, reading and writing and arithmetic, taught to the tune of a hickory stick. You was my gal in calico, and I was your handsome barefoot beau. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So come on out tomorrow and let's talk about it. Abraham Lincoln said that education makes a man easy to lead but difficult to drive. Easy to govern but impossible to enslave. Frederick Douglass said that once a man learns to read, he will never, ever be fit to be a slave. That he will not allow you to enslave his mind once he is educated. A little 12-year-old girl wrote something one time. She said, "No chains on my hands, no chains on my feet, can't you see? But the chains on my mind are keeping me from being free." And so if you can free your mind, you never have to worry about being a slave. Let's go to the phone and take our first caller today. Caller, are you there?
Hello, Dr. Davis, U.S. Representative, 7th District.
Yes,
I want to change my comment. You're talking about how can we motivate children, especially to stay in high school, I think, first of all, you need to find out what motivates your child. And second of all, with my daughter, that she finished her freshman year, I got her to work a retail job. And she had to stick with that retail job, and she had to learn some things from that. When she had to work and had to deal with the people, and had to deal with management, and plus the fact, took a third of her paycheck. I didn't want to hear about her personal problems or anything like that. Pay me my money. They would pay that cell phone bill and all that. And she didn't know I was taking the money and I was putting it in a savings account for her. And when she graduated from high school, she got a check back for a little bit under $7,000. I think you need to find out what motivates your child and try to use that as a method to drive them. And
and we need to try to give children good parents.
Well, I tell you something else, okay? And you brought up about the hickory switch, all right?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, it don't hurt to give your child a tune-up. I ain't said kill him. Give him a tune-up.
Well, it sounds to me like you did an outstanding job as a parent.
Thank you.
And
I'll call back later. But
okay, we had a group of kids night before last at out at the Oak Park Village Hall. We had 6 young people from Oak Park that we nominated this year to the military academies. And those scholarships are worth, I'm told, about $400,000. And each one. And when I finally got there and it was time for me to say something, the first thing I said was to the young people, let's give your parents a great round of applause, because without the guidance of your parents, I just don't believe that all of you would be getting these $400,000 scholarships to go off to college to become whatever you decide to become. So good parenting, I think, produces good students. I thank you for your little bit of experience in terms of telling us how you dealt with your daughter. And let me tell you, to graduate from high school and have $7,000 that your parents have put away for you, hey, that means the sky is the limit. So thank you, parents. Thank you, parents. The other announcement that I want to make, of course, on Saturday, February 24th, there's going to be something called the Trailblazer Awards. We'll be at the Garfield Park Conservatory. And this is where Mr. Abe Thompson, Dr. Sheila Harrison Williams, and Miss Annetta Wilson are going to be receiving awards for the outstanding contributions they've made to the community. And the Safer Foundation wants us to know that if you are a CHA resident or a Housing Choice Voucher recipient, there is a transitional jobs program awaiting for you. And orientation will be held on February 27th, 12 p.m. at 808 South Kedzie Avenue, and you can enter through the parking lot. Please bring a valid driver's license, state ID, and Social Security card so that you can learn how to do this work and get yourself a good job. So a lot of good things are going on. Take advantage of them. And, we always say that the person who knows how to do something will always be able to get a job. But the person who knows why it's being done will generally be the boss. Do both. Know how to do something and know why it's being done, be the boss. There are a lot of things going on. Let me tell you, I was so pleased to be at the cinema the other Saturday. People were coming in and out of that theater all day long. I was so pleased that I had decided to buy one of the stages or one of the auditoriums, and we had 175 young people and their parents who came. And I also want to thank the gentleman who bought them popcorn. Mr. Abdallah actually bought them popcorn so they could have popcorn. And he owns a number of service stations around in the community. That Falcon Fuel stations that you see, well, he bought the kids at the theater popcorn, and I want to thank him. There's going to be a big event on Sunday at Kingston Mines. As a matter of fact, the Austin Voice newspaper have their annual event that they have there every year. And on the saxophone is going to be former Alderman Isaac Carruthers, Ike Carruthers, as many people know him as being. Well, Ike also plays saxophone, and he's a good saxophone player, so he's going to be there. And so there's just a lot of good things going on for you to be engaged in, be involved with. We are about to wrap up Black History Month, and I guess I've been to at least 20 Black History events and programs. I mean, a lot of them. And so I am just delighted with all of the activity. I still have 2 more to do. I am going to do one on Sunday because the village of Bellwood have their Black History celebration that they do every year. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also doing one myself in Washington on Tuesday of next week, where we are going to be talking about creating black wealth. And we have a number of people who are going to be on a panel who have figured out how to do that. They've created a great deal of wealth, and so we're excited about all of that. I'm going to also announce that on tomorrow, there's going to be the funeral of Lerone Bennett, the great writer and the guy who wrote for Ebony magazine for many, many years, as well as he wrote a number of books. One of his most famous books is Before the Mayflower, which is a book about black history, but he goes before blacks were brought to this country as slaves. I urge you to get a copy of it, and also to read about Carter G. Woodson, the gentleman who started what we now know as African American History Month. And Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, and Lou Palmer used to say it all the time, that Carter G. Woodson said, if you control a man's mind, you don't have to worry about how he will act. He said, if you control a man's mind, you don't have to tell him to go to the back door or go to the back of the bus. Woodson said, if you control a man's mind, he will find his place and stay in it. And if he goes to the back door and there is no back door, he say a controlled mind will find a hatchet, an axe, or something and cut one out so that he can come through the back. Well, we'll never go to the back door. Mr. Woodson, we thank you for teaching us that lesson, that we should always go through the front door, and then we should catch somebody else by the hand and snatch them in or lift them up. And that's the only time that you'd ever want to look down on a person would be if you was trying to lift them up. Thank you, African American heroes. Thank you, African American teachers. Thank you, African American philosophers, for the heritage that you have left. We've got a caller on the phone, so we'll go right to the phone. Caller, are you there?
Yes, thank you for taking my call, Congressman. And I want to applaud you with regard to championing education. I mean, all too many people don't realize that it really is the silver bullet. It is the answer to issues with regard to crime, to unemployment, to building of wealth, so many things. In societies that invest in education, you find much lower rates of crime. You find much more wealth. You find people who are living in stable society. Because that's what happens when you are educated. You're able to secure for yourself a degree of employment and job security over a lifetime that allows you to buy a home, to provide for your family, all of the things that you associate with a stable society. And the exact opposite is true for societies that don't invest in education. And of course, the paradox in America is that in communities where schools should look like cathedrals, because those are the neediest of communities, those communities often have the worst schools. And in communities that have the most affluent, in terms of wealth and parents with education and so forth, have the best schools. So on the North Shore, kids who need the least have the most. And on the south and east and west sides of Chicago, kids who need the most have the least. And unfortunately, that's predicated upon a system where it says that property taxes are going to fund education. And as long as we say that, you know what, if you're poor, meaning that you live in a poor community and your house isn't worth very much, then your children are going to receive a commensurate education with that wealth or lack thereof. And people who are wealthy, well, guess what? Your kids get to receive a wealthy man's education. So until we begin to address the disparity that exists with that underlying system, we're not going to get the kind of change that we want.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and I am hoping that we will find ourselves with enough will to change the way that we have funded public education so that we can bring a higher level of equity to the system. Right now, the formula of using real estate as the base, if you live in an area where real estate is very valuable and you generate a certain amount of money, then you've got more money for education. You live in another place where the real estate is not as valuable, you're not generating as much money, and your students, your children, your young people start out behind. Let me tell you, playing catch up is pretty tough. So I thank you for your call. We'll go to our next caller. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, how you doing, Connie Davis?
I'm good, James. How are you?
Okay, like I said once before, God gonna deal with them. God gonna deal with the media and all this violence and all stuff. People should go to church from now on. Then they go to church from now on. There won't be no violence and all this like this. The media always show this violence and all that. And they should get their time to God. Stop showing all this violence on the media, on the news. Because that's unnecessary. Because God going to deal with the media, and God going to deal with a lot of these people out here who do wrong. And And then what happened in Florida? They said it was a police officer at the school, and he did nothing. Donald Trump and them always support the police, and why can't they support the police when that police did wrong in Florida? But they always support the police, the media, and Donald Trump. God tried to show Donald Trump you can't lie on the police. Why the reason why you can't lie on the police? That police who was at that school, he didn't do nothing, but he ran.
Well, we hope that we'll change much of that where we won't have that same problem over and over and over again. I've also been told that education is not just something that you know, but it's also something that you do. And when you're educated to know better, then you'll do better. So thank you very much. We'll go to our next caller. Caller, are you there?
Yes, Congressman. And it's a great day to be on God's green earth. But listen, I heard 3 callers today, and it reminded me of the old days. You had Joe, you had Steve, and you had James. It's good to hear from them again. And especially today, we got a new one. My God, the 70-year-old talking about heads and stuff like that. It's crazy. But listen, I have always taught my kids. I have always taught my grandkids, and now I'm teaching my great-grandson. Well, I was told to me, the key to success is education. You got to get that education. Man could take your shirt off your back. He could take the shoes off your feet. But one thing what he cannot take is education, what you have in your head. Only you will lose that. So again, the key to success is education. Now, real quick, I heard you talking about Humpty Dumpty earlier. Maybe that's what happened to Donald Duck. He fell out that wall, and they couldn't put him back together when he was young. So that's why he's acting so doggone crazy today. I mean, again, you know it. It ain't no telling what's going to come out that man. So I know, let me let you get a chance to say your response, and it's so glad to see you every Friday.
All right, thank you so much, and we'll get this call right now, and we'll be back. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am. You're looking mighty spiffy as always, and I hope your beautiful wife is feeling a lot better.
Well, thank you so much. She is doing fine.
All right, honesty is the best policy. So let's get down to it, because you're an honorable man. White people say that the former president, Barack Obama, was the first black president. He wasn't. You know why?
Why?
I'm going to tell you. He's black and he's white. So that makes him biracial. I don't care how much he says that he's black, or a person says how much they are if they're white, because the day they're born to the day they die, they're going to be biracial. So, I voted for him because I like his stuff. But, you got to tell the truth, and that's the honest God truth. Thank you.
But there has been racial mixing in this country for, I guess, practically ever since the country has been. But, of course, the designation of black, I think, has to do with not only ethnic heritage, but also environment, custom and tradition, the heritage that you practice, as well as the heritage from whence you come. So I think we're going to eventually get there where we'll all just be God's children, and that's going to happen eventually. I just don't know exactly when. Thanks for your call. We'll take this last call. Caller, are you there?
Yes, congratulations, Congressman. You are a good role model for this city and this country. And may we continue to celebrate Black History Month all year long, because our kids are dynamite. We're taking our kids to school. We're taking them to the polling place and teach them about the beginning of history. No matter what your nationality is, you know better, you do better. and you continue to do that work, not just on the west side, but all throughout this city and throughout this world, because you're one of the best congressmen that we have.
Well, thank you so very much. I really appreciate that. And that's a good point, I guess, for us to be sent off on. It's always good. It's been a wonderful afternoon. I thank all of our callers, all of our listeners, all of our viewers. And I think those of you who didn't get a chance to get in, just have yourself a wonderful weekend. And we look forward to seeing you next week.